Hey everyone,
That was
Matt Geller
awesome.
here from hey Antonio. Hey everyone, Matt
Hey,
Geller here from
I'm
New
Mark.
Grad Optometry. You're on.
There
We're
we
doing
go.
a live webinar tonight, guys, on some really cool topics that are really relevant to new graduates and the generation at hand. So it's optical management and EHR lessons, and it's definitely geared towards the newer optometrists. So if you're 10 years out or younger, this could be super valuable to you. So I'm founder of New Grad Optometry here. I formerly did private practice in San Diego, California, and someone who we got with us is a dear friend of mine, but also a coworker. We've got Dr. Antonio Chirumbolo, who's the head of content at New Grad Optometry. He's worked on projects with me all the way back to the optometrystudents.com days, and now with New Grad Optometry, but he's also a private practitioner in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been trying to get him to come out here to sunny San Diego, but we're getting there, slowly but surely. But Antonio, give him a short about kind of your background here. And we both graduated SUNY in 2013, so I'm starting to feel old, but not that old. Antonio, take it away.
Yeah, so yeah, I've been resisting moving out to San Diego. I'm a big fan of rain and clouds and no sun here in Pittsburgh. So, but yeah, I'm from Pittsburgh originally, and as Matt said, we graduated together in 2013 from SUNY. And after that, I decided to move back to my hometown here in Pittsburgh, and I kind of fell into a job at a private practice, and the practice is Complete Family Vision Care, and it's in the greater Pittsburgh area, about 20 minutes or so from the city. But it's a large group private practice, and I'm employed actually as an associate. We do have 5 locations, and it's kind of a unique situation in that each doc, there's 5 locations and 5 doctors, but each doc is essentially responsible for the location that they're working at full time. So as I said, it's an employment situation, so I am a W-2 employee, and but my situation is a bit unique because even though I'm W-2 and I receive medical insurance and benefits and retirement, etc., I am paid 100% based on production. With that being the case, it's absolutely critical that I keep my optical running as smoothly, efficiently, and effectively as possible, because my livelihood really depends on it.
Antonio,
So here you have
just for
situation.
a second, this is so common. I mean, we answer lots of inquiries, obviously, on New Grad Optometry. I think this is the #1 thing we hear is how do you properly set up production income so that it makes sense for this new optometrist who kind of, like you said, is getting thrown to the wolves in a way. Just take a step back on that real quick. I mean, what are the pros and cons of doing production income versus salary? And I think I see that come up a bit, and then we'll dive right into the optical lessons, the EHR stuff, which we'll be talking about Revolution EHR today.
Sure. So so pros and cons of production-based pay is, there's the pros are basically that your income potential is really uncapped. So if you're willing to really invest in your time into growing the practice, you will benefit from it because your patient base will increase, sales will increase. So if you want to put in the time, you can make more money. The cons, unfortunately, are that if you're in a practice that is very slow or the patient base is small, then you're basically going to find yourself in a situation where you might not be making a lot of money unless you've got a fantastic personality and your optical is incredible. But so there are some pros and cons, but as you said, it's a common situation that new grads might find themselves in, and it is an employment situation that some of us will find ourselves in. And that's what happened to me about a year out of school. I take on this position, and I'm thinking, okay, what could possibly go wrong? This sounds good. I'll go in, I'll see some patients, they'll buy some glasses, maybe some contacts, and I'll make a great living that way. So the first week, going back a couple years now, the first week, I've got a few patients on the schedule, and I see them, and I put in a day's work, and at the end of the day, I run the report, seeing how much I made that day, and I said, oh my gosh, I could have basically made the same amount going to the grocery store and bagging groceries. So it was, a shocking sort of realization that, I was like, geez, I can't just sit around here. I've got to start really taking an active role in trying to grow the practice and basically just improve my game, in prescribing. And that's what I think two of the toughest things when you first graduate from school and maybe find yourself in this sort of employment situation are that you don't really have a lot of optical training, like you said before, Matt. As a new grad, you don't know much about it. And number two, I think the hardest thing to overcome is that idea of selling. You think, well, I'm not a salesman or a saleswoman. I didn't go to school for this. I don't know how to sell glasses. And, there's different little ways to go about solving these problems that I can share with you if you're interested. But
yeah. So let's say high level here. One of the things that I experienced was optometry school taught me a lot about clinic. I knew the ins and outs of an OCT, and I knew the ins and outs of a phoropter and some binocular vision equipment, but I did not know the ins and outs of the dispensary, both from the business side, but also even just from it's something that's living and breathing thing. It needs to be managed. And so, what are just a couple of tips, high level, around the way, should both students and undergraduates start thinking about that now? And I guess from that, we can dive into how you're utilizing your EHR to help manage your dispensary.
Yeah, so I think that new graduates should definitely start thinking about optical and dispensary management as soon as possible, because like I said, it's not uncommon, even if you're not paid based solely off production, where optical is such an important part of your income. If you join a practice, even as an employee, they're going to expect you to prescribe and to build revenue in other ways. So if you just go in and, you just punch in the clock and patients are just leaving with their prescriptions, and your employment situation is not going to last very long that way. When you join a practice, the doc who owns the practice is expecting you to produce, basically. So you got to be prepared for that. And I think that the first thing to do is to realize that you're not really selling. And that's what I learned very quickly, is that I'm not selling. I'm not there to sell, but I am there to prescribe. So the sooner you realize that you prescribe for every patient, every individual, you'll soon find that sales will follow. So it's not like you're selling furniture. That's what you have to think about. You're not saying, okay, I know you're here for a couch today, but hey, that end table looks pretty nice too. Why don't you pick one of those up? That's not what it's about. Really focus on improving and meeting the needs of all your patients. So sometimes that could be prescribing 4 pairs of glasses for one patient. And that's something that I think about. That's something that I do a lot, actually. So I might talk to patients about prescription sunglasses or transition lenses. I know you just need single vision glasses for your daily tasks, but I understand that you also work on the computer all day and you've been having a lot of eye fatigue. Well, there are computer glasses that might help you with that. And, patients don't look at that as you're trying to sell them something. They understand that, okay, you're trying to prescribe me something that might help me, and they see the value in that. So the biggest tip is to really remember to talk to your patients about what they do, what are their hobbies, what do they do at work, really get to know them. So that's what I would focus on doing first, is just finding that understanding that you're not selling, you're prescribing. And then the
Catherine,
stuff.
I apologize. Catherine had a question. I'll just throw it in there because I think you're going to hit on
please.
this
Anyway. No, this is great.
She says, how do you manage selling glasses and being a good doctor without coming across as a salesperson, prescribe versus pushing product? And Catherine, I had that experience too when I was practicing and I was on production as well. I knew that I had to kind of, quote unquote, you got to eat what you can kill in a way. And it was difficult to find that boundary. And I think the biggest thing for me, Antonio, I don't know your tip, but it was all about finding out the patient's concern or the patient's problem. I think a lot of times psychologically, patients go into any doctor, optometrist included, and they don't want to talk about what's hurting them or what's bothering them. I know, like it's the inner hypochondriac in all of us. We're scared to let the doctor know our ailment because we don't want to be diagnosed. We don't want to have to go through treatment. I don't want a shot, And so patients hide that. And so a lot of times, you just go straight for the sale, but really you need to find out more of their problem and get them to speak about it, and then you can prescribe. And I think if there is no problem, then you've got to really think about what are you prescribing for. But I somewhat take that back, though. Sometimes it's not about having a problem, but it's optimizing something. So it's, do you have a problem or where can I optimize? And you've got to get them to say that, and then you offer them a solution. And Tony, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And that's a great question. It's honestly a question that I struggled with when I first started in this situation, probably now almost 2.5 years ago. But you just have to listen to the patient because they'll often tell you what the problem is. So if a patient comes in and I'm talking to them and, there might be emmetropic, they might not wear glasses now. And if they say, hey, I work on the computer all day, I feel great, then I might talk about computer glasses or anti-fatigue glasses, but I don't really tell them, hey, you absolutely need these. It's going to make your life better. I'll educate them on that, on those type of glasses, and I'll tell them, hey, you're not having a problem now, which is great. So keep doing what you're doing, but there is an option for you if problems were to arise in the future. So I'm not pushing something on them that they don't necessarily need or want, but I'm just educating them on their options. Conversely, if someone comes in and says, hey, I don't wear glasses now, I see great, but at the end of the day, my gosh, I can't even keep my eyes open and my head hurts, then right away, you can talk 100% about computer lenses, anti-fatigue lenses. There's many out there now. And, they'll look at that and say, hey, I didn't even know these existed. I didn't know I could do that. And they'll appreciate that. And they're not going to look at you as a salesman or that you're pushing something on them, but you're actually trying to solve a problem.
Yep. Antonio, so tell me how you're utilizing, you've got cloud-based EHR at your practice. Let's talk about RevolutionEHR here. What features of the platform? Because look, the reason software is important in today's practice, just things aren't like they used to be. We need to leverage technology and efficiencies and economies of scale to be able to have a successful practice. Obviously, we're starting to need to do more volume because of lowering reimbursements, staff management. I mean, we need to use something in regards to technology to help make things easier. So you guys adopted Revolution at your practice. What features specifically help you with some of the things we're talking about here?
Yeah, so we are Revolution users. I've used different systems in the past, and I am a big fan of Revolution. I think that it's very user-friendly, and really the best thing about it is that it's kind of an all-in-one system. So you have the EMR, the HR, you have the scheduling, you have reports, practice management, optical management. It's all in one place. So, I'm not, I can't look at every little thing that happens in the optical. I just don't have time for that because I'm so busy seeing patients. But as I said before, optical is a big part of my livelihood. It's a big part of the practice. And so I really use a couple of key things from our EHR to kind of keep a finger on the pulse, so to speak, of the optical, to see how we're performing, to see where we can improve. And, there's a lot of cool features in Revolution that, our opticians love. But in terms of specific things that I use, there's the main things I would say are to basically keep an eye on, what frames are you stocking? What frames are selling the best? What contacts are selling the best? Running reports and figuring out sales data. Because what you do is then you use that information to make buying decisions. Because I don't know how much practice knowledge a lot of the viewers have out there right now, but you buy frames and you stock them. And when they sell, you need to replace them. So you're often faced with decisions as to what frames am I, should I stock? What frames should I get rid of? And so there's a lot of great reports in Revolution that let you track that data. And that's easily trackable from the exam room, which is kind of what I do. So that's probably the biggest role I play in the optical, is seeing what is selling, what's not selling, and sitting down with the opticians and the staff and talking about what we want to keep in the practice and maybe what we want to steer away from. So those are the main things. And I can give you a quick little demo if you'd like to see one here.
Yeah.
On some of the things that I use. So let me do this here.
We had a quick question come in on Odie's on Facebook, Antonio, while you're bringing that up.
Sure.
That I can answer.
Yep.
And it was from
Sure.
Tasripin. And can you comment on the best way to motivate associate ODs other than production? It's a good question. I mean, I think, personally, I think there's a few ways. If that person wants to become an equity partner down the line, that's the #1 motivation. Having stake in the business is a huge motivator. And so you can always consider that, but sometimes that's not always an option. I think that if you're not feeling as an employee like you're moving the needle for the company or doing something positive, then you're really not going to enjoy your time at work. And what I mean by that is if the practice isn't setting goals for the employees to achieve or work towards, then you'll never have that feeling of arrival at the goal or fulfillment. So actually something as simple as saying, here's the goal, let's achieve it, that alone is extremely motivating for an associate. In addition, there's obviously things along continuing education allowance, bonuses that come quarterly for other performance, say like you're doing marketing for the practice or something like that. There's always, some of the practices that I've worked at, we've done, baseball games and gone out, and it's really about promoting that team type of spirit and team type of environment. But I think it starts with getting the right type of production income set up. I mean, you've got to make sure that that works. But a lot of the intrinsic motivations we have as human beings in general still apply. And so for this one, I look to lessons outside of optometry. There's software out there that helps employees get perks to the gyms and things like that. You kind of buy one, I forget what it's called. It used to be called AnyPerk, ANYPERK. I think they changed the name. There's things like that, but I think the biggest one is just setting goals and achieving them. Antonio, go ahead, show what you had there.
Yeah, I completely agree, Matt, and that's a great question. It really is. I think I've got my screen here working, so I'll just quickly show you a few little tricks, little tools I use. I think you can see that, right, Matt?
No, I don't see it yet. Still
Not
see
yet?
It. There we go.
You got it now?
Yep.
Right here?
There you go.
Okay, so this is all right, cool. So this is a live little screen capture of Revolution EHR. I'm actually logged into the system right now. I'm in a sandbox environment, so HIPAA police, don't worry, we're good here. There's nothing, no real patient information, no real data here, but you can quickly see that there's a bunch of tabs up here, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but essentially this is your patient scheduler, the schedule itself. Oh man, I didn't have any patients today. Didn't make any money. No, I'm kidding. But there's some other things you can do in here, but the main thing I'm really, for the purpose of this talk, are two main tabs. One is this little box here, products and services, which I primarily use so for optical kind of management. And the other is this reports tab, which is my personal favorite tab. So whenever you're looking at products and services, I've already got it popped up, it looks like. So there's a few things you can do. Our practice stocks, obviously, frames, lenses, etc., but also contact lenses. So we keep stock of certain contact lenses in the practice, and that we sell to patients when they need to purchase them. And once again, these are just fictitious, but you can easily, quickly look at inventory in here. So, okay, we have Johnson & Johnson here that is listed first. You can, on that little field, and go to open. And there's some other tabs in here. So you can really set everything you want. There's so much you can do with this. The main thing I look at, quite honestly, is I look a lot at these numbers here, wholesale price, what we're getting at, and retail price. Those are obviously important numbers. But the main thing I look at is physical inventory. So unfortunately, there's not any listed in here. Like I said, this is fictitious, but if you do click on your Johnson & Johnson product, you can have a list of everything you have, 30 packs of the 1-Day Moist, 90 packs of the 1-Day Moist, the Oasis lens, etc. And you can see what your stock is here, how many you have remaining. And the cool thing about this is that if the optician sells a box of lenses, you could create an invoice in Revolution. Once you create that invoice, the number of stock is actually automatically updated so you can keep an eye out for, okay, do I need to order more boxes of Oasis, yes or no? So that is one thing that I keep a close eye on, is what are we stocking? What's our stock looking like? Because there are times that you might have certain lenses that you keep in stock, but you're not really moving them or selling them, which has happened in our practice. And we've looked at our better sellers and we've said, okay, look, we'll continue to sell these lenses, but we don't really need to keep a stock of them. And so we've sent them back and have them exchanged. The other tab that I use quite a bit, which is, like I said before, my favorite tab. You can do the same thing for frames here, of course, before I move there, but it's the same sort of situation where you'll have all your frames, your manufacturers, the brand, and you can do the same thing with the same buttons. But this is my favorite tab right here, the reports tab, because I'm a numbers guy. I like to look at numbers. And this is essentially how I track what is selling, what's not selling, what we should keep more of, what we should get rid of. And so you can do the two main things that I do in my exam room, and I do this during lunch most of the time. I look at the age report, which is what this little button is here. So you can run this little report. You can set certain dates. I went way back just to get more data. But if you search, you can essentially see, okay, unfortunately, once again, there's not a lot of numbers in here, but you can see how many of these frames you have in stock, right? So let's just look at this polo frame. So it might say, okay, you have 2 of those in stock, and they've been in stock for 365 days. So you might look at that and say, awesome. Okay, wow, yeah, I've got this polo frame, these frames here that have been sitting on the shelf for 365 days. Probably not a frame that you want to keep around. You might want to think about swapping that out or just trying to get it off the shelf to make room for something else. Whereas conversely, you might have a Burberry frame, let's just say up here, same report, but it might say that the average age is 10 days. So, you got this frame and it sat on the shelf for 10 days, then you sold it. And you restocked it, it sold again 10 days later. So you might look at that and say, man, we should keep more of these frames around. Let's look at other styles of frames just like that. And that's one thing that we do on a monthly basis sometimes, is we look at these numbers together as a team, myself and the staff, and we see, okay, what's selling, what's not selling, what's trending, because we also meet with our sales reps, our frame reps, usually quarterly actually, and kind of just take a good look at how we're doing. How's our relationship going? Is there something that we could be doing better? Is there a frame line that we might not really need in the practice? Maybe we can switch it with something else. So that's those are a few things I do. The last thing, report that I like to run a lot is this report here, the sales report, and it's similar to the age report, but just strictly sales. So you look at a certain frame, you can toggle a specific date range here, maybe go to November.
So that would be good if you had like an event or something like that.
Exactly, yeah. You can, if you had a trunk show or you have a certain event, or, you know, you just had a great month, you know, the books have shown you did a great month. You might say, whoa, I wonder, you know, why did we sell so many, you know, frames this, you know, this month? And you can run a really quick report here, which is kind of cool because, oh, looks like we sold a Calvin Klein with Flex on there. But so you could run this report and you can really say, oh man, you know, this Calvin Klein line, we're selling so many of these. Look how much, look at that gross revenue. We sold 10 of these. And, you know, they'll also show frames that you haven't sold at all. So once again, that gives you a good handle on what frames are trending in your practice, what frame lines you might want to carry, what frame lines you might want to get rid of. And so those are the main optical reports that I run in the practice. There's so much else you can do with this, obviously. Little nitty gritty stuff that I honestly don't get too involved in just because I don't have the time, and, you know, I have a great staff that does. So you can look at orders, live orders. You can see where they are in the production line, so to speak. You know, these are orders that were placed. Oh, looks like this was placed yesterday. So, and you can track it and you can see where things are. So my opticians really like this section here, this area here, in addition to some other things. But so those are the main reports that I run. And the other really good thing about Revolution is that every pair of glasses that is sold, every box of contact lenses that is sold can be linked to the provider in the practice. So in my situation, right, we've got 5 practices, we've got 5 doctors. For the most part, we work in separate locations, but at the end of the day, you can quickly run a sales report by provider. And I did year to date just to show some numbers here, but you can find out, okay, how did you do that day, right? You know, well, this was the gross number of sales after insurance discounts, after adjustments. This is what you netted. So this is the report that I run almost every day, just to see, okay, how much money did I make today? And so that's another nice benefit of Revolution, especially when you get into practices with multiple providers or multiple practices with many providers. It lets you see where you stand. And if you do have multiple practices, you can see, okay, which practice is, you know, holding us back, which one needs help, which one's overperforming or underperforming.
So when you first got out of school, was this pretty new to you, it seems? This was a bit of a surprise to get started, like really thinking about numbers? Because prior to that, it was take as long as you want for an exam. You know, just get it done and, you know, make your diagnosis, set your treatment, and move forward. So this sounds like it was a bit of an awakening for you in a way to have to start tracking things and thinking things through this pipeline. I think you're still sharing my tab. So.
Am I? Okay, I'm going to try to, just having a little technical difficulty here. Looks like you still seeing yourself right now, Matt? Are you seeing the rep tab?
No, yeah, I still see the tab of me.
So it might be, let's see, hold on. Did the screen go blank there for a second? Or are you still seeing me? There we go.
Yeah, I think.
So you should have me here back in a second. Sorry.
It's okay.
There you go.
No, there you go. So yeah, so it was an awakening a bit for you, it sounds like.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It like we were talking about before, it's really difficult when you're first out to kind of get a handle on this stuff. I mean, I didn't know anything about the optical. I just thought I had to go and see patients and write prescriptions, and that was it. But a lot of what you do, a lot of success comes from prescribing. and having a successful optical. That doesn't mean that you need an optical to succeed. There's a lot of practices out there that are just major medical practices, and that's a lot of what they do. And, you know, there's some practices out there. A good friend of ours, Mikey D'Angelo, she doesn't even have an optical. She opened cold without one. So, but for a majority of practices, I think that optical strength is very important. So it's never too soon to start learning those ropes and coming up with a strategy of how to succeed with that. So that's one thing that I did when I first started. You know, like I said, when I first took the job, I had a really rough couple of first weeks. So I sat down with the staff and I said, okay, look, we got to come up with a strategy here. You know, what are we going to do? So it really, I'm fortunate because I have a good staff. I have a great staff, and we're kind of look at this as a team sort of effort. So it always starts with the minute a patient calls to make an appointment, and you know, the schedulers will talk to the patient, find out, okay, you know, what do you schedule an appointment for? You know, do you need contacts? Do you need glasses? Okay, make sure you bring all your prescription eyewear with you to the appointment, whether it's sunglasses, computer glasses, bring it all, because we like to know what you're wearing. And so, you know, it gets the patient thinking about that. And when they arrive to their appointment, it continues into the technician's room. So the technician will oftentimes take the patient, and in the pre-screening process, they'll talk to them. They'll say, okay, these are your computer glasses. These are, okay, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies? And they'll talk to them and get an idea of what they do for a living, what they like to do. And all that information is accessible to me, so that by the time they make it into the exam room, I have a good understanding of the eyewear they currently have, what their visual needs are, what their visual environments are. And that makes the exam a lot easier, because that lets me talk to them about how to meet those needs, how to solve their problems. And it obviously continues at the end of the exam into the handoff to our opticians, who kind of reiterate what I talked about. I reiterate what I talked about to the optician, and they kind of take it from there. And so it's really a team approach. So I think that if you do find yourself in this sort of situation and you kind of aren't sure how to go about it, once again, it's about knowing that you talk to the patients first, find out what they like to do, what they do for a living, and you know, you listen to them, listen to what they're telling you, and you know, understand that you're prescribing them. You're prescribing, you're not selling. And come up with a strategy to have a team approach to it. That's what it is. It's about teamwork. It really is.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So what is your staff's kind of opinion of using technology? How do you get staff to really say, okay, I'm going to start using a new EHR? I mean, I remember I was with an office who was going paperless, and it was a headache, big time headache. Not as much for the doctor, the owner, or even the optometrist, who was okay with you know, the work because of their sense of ownership, the salary, the understanding, the education behind that. But how do you get staff how do you get them on board with the new technology like Revolution, whether we're switching or whether, because it sounds like you have an awesome staff, and that's difficult.
Yeah. It is difficult, yeah. Well, you just don't give them a choice. No, I'm kidding. So you kind of just present it to them. I mean, fortunately, a lot of my staff, they're very tech savvy, and they're able to adapt and learn new technology pretty quickly. We switched systems, I want to say, I've been at the practice for a total of 4 years. 3 of those years were with Complete Family Vision Care. It's kind of a long story in year 1, but to make a long story a little shorter, we had multiple EHRs throughout that time period. Revolution is the latest one, and we've had that for about 2.5 years or so now, and at least at this location. The other locations have been with Revolution a lot longer. But every time we learn a new EHR, there's always challenges, there's always hurdles. But fortunately with Revolution, it was pretty easy to learn, pretty easy to adapt to. The customer support, the training is really excellent, and it was actually pretty easy, honestly. It didn't take very long for everyone to get up to speed. And the other thing too that you got to understand is that it's one system, so everyone's logging into one single system, and there's different subsets in the same system. So, you know, for the schedulers, they're focused on scheduling appointments. So they're working in a module. And where they know a little bit about all the other modules, for instance, they're not running reports. So they didn't have to learn everything. So that is the good thing, because a lot of systems are separate. So if you're scheduling in one system, but you're putting the exam in another system, or I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of EHRs that have separate operating components. So there's a scheduler, then there's the EHR, then there's the data. So when you have a situation like that, it's difficult for, say, you know, someone who's just scheduling appointments. They're working in the scheduler, but if you say, oh, you know, Mrs. Smith needs her records, can you print them for her? Then they say, oh, geez, you know, I've never gone in that module. I don't know how to do it. So they're learning a lot of different components, even though it's supposed to be all in one. So Revolution is nice because it's all in one, and you learn a little bit of each, and you kind of know enough to put it all together. So it's kind of an easier system to adapt to, I feel like. And once again, I think it just comes down to attitude. If you have a staff that's really willing to learn, then they're going to want to learn, and they'll meet the challenges. So.
What were some of the biggest lessons that you had in the very beginning about just optical in general? Like, what was the big awakening for you? Like, oh my God, this optical needs attention. If we don't focus on this properly, you know, the practice will not succeed. What were some of those big awakenings? I want to try to give some of the new graduates who aren't necessarily in optical heavy practices, or who maybe are in optical heavy practices and they're not participating there or not supporting that. What's some advice around that? How can they pitch in and help? Whether it's from the management side on this tool like RevolutionEHR, or whether it's from just like your general philosophy on the optical.
Yeah, that's another really good question. And I think the biggest awakening was after 2 weeks of working, and I kind of ran the reports and looked at my pay, and I said, oh my gosh, you know, why am I not making any money? I'm seeing patients. Where's the money going? And I quickly realized that you can have days where you might see 20 patients and you might not really make any money, because there are exams in the land of vision care plans and managed care. There are exam fees, vision, medical, and they reimburse at different rates. So if you're just seeing 10 patients who all have vision care plans, and they're leaving your office without buying any glasses, buying any contacts, your day isn't going to be very good. You know, you might only collect $1,000 in fees that day. So you quickly realize that, geez, you know, the optical is pretty critical here to success. You need a well-running optical to increase your revenue. And if you don't, you're going to suffer. Once again, there are some exceptions. And as the practice I'm at has grown, there are days now that I might see 20 patients, and 15 of them are either are there for glaucoma workups or different retinal issues, and you know, I'm managing them for that. And so you kind of can make up reimbursements with procedures and medical billing. But that's pretty much the big awakening moment for me, was realizing that I can't just go in there and see patients. That's not enough. And it doesn't matter necessarily how many patients are on your schedule, because it's a sum of both parts. It's examining and materials. You kind of need both. So that was the big awakening moment for myself.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, guys, if you all have questions at any point in time, just we're on youtube.com/newgradoptometry, and if you find this video, you can ask them in the chat. We've had a couple really good questions come in so far, so just wanted to put that out there. What about, let's talk about a little bit about optical marketing here. You've got a platform now that helps to keep stock of your inventory. It lets you know where things are in the sales process, etc. What are a couple tips your optical's doing to try to get the word out to patients, both new patients coming in, but also existing patients? How do you get that upsell in there? I know it's not the best word to use, but a lot of times we want the patient to purchase the second pair. What's some things you see your opticians doing, or how do you get new patients to be, looking and browsing the optical?
That's a great question, and I think a lot of that starts in the exam room. And I said that a little earlier, but I frequently, there's a couple actually little tricks. I'll share one with you a little later, but it starts in the exam room. So I talk a lot about UV. I talk a lot about computer vision syndrome, and I'll talk a lot about anti-glare. So there's different things that you can talk to your patients about, which gets them thinking about AR coding. And it gets them thinking about blue blocking technology or UV or prescription somewhere or transitions. So I talk to them about these things in terms of eye health. And when they go to the dispensary, they go to the optical, they kind of already have that in their mind as to, okay, this is actually something that I think I can benefit from. This is something that my eyes can help with the health of my eyes. That's the mindset they enter in with. And my opticians are very knowledgeable about all the different AR products, be it Prevencia or different types of coatings, and so they'll talk to patients about that. And I think the AR coating is a big one, just because I get a lot of patients that will come in and they'll say, hey, I got this coating on my glasses and, it just peeled off, it flaked off. I had these glasses for 6 months. And, a lot of times the discussion is, well, okay, do you know what coating you got? No, I don't. Okay, where did you get the glasses? And you find out, okay, they might have got them from somewhere that isn't really using premium products, right? And so then you talk to them about premium products and they see value in that. And that helps get the sales, I guess I should say, going, because as you add different things to glasses, it can be expensive, it can add up, but if they see the value in it, then it's not a problem. So there's other things that go on in the optical as well. I mean, we rotate a lot. We like to change the optical a lot. So we have patients that have been coming to see us for years and years and years. And the optical we like to try to change all the time. So we change the frame boards a lot. We change positioning of our glasses towers. So we kind of, it's always a different look. I guess it's always got a different feel. So a lot of times patients will come in and they'll be like, oh, I just want to look and see, what it looks like this time around. So those are little tidbits, little tricks that we use. So that's some of the stuff we have in our practice that gets the discussion going. But like I said, I think a lot of it begins with me.
Yeah, sure. It begins with the doctor for sure. Yeah, I remember, like Catherine asked before about how do you make that sale happen, and it's a lot about education. You can definitely get patients into the practice by doing some very light and general advertising. I'm really big in the web space, obviously, and I think that Facebook ads and Google ads are very underutilized by practices. The beauty of those things are the ability to target people in the area you're searching for, you're looking for. You can go as deep as zip code, excluding areas you don't want to market to or that you already have market dominance in. And let's say like there's a new product coming out that you really want to get out there, a new piece of technology, or a new seamless way for patient experience. You can advertise those things with a very simple call to action ad. A lot of these platforms want you to spend money, so they have little mini ad builders within it. You don't need a graphic designer for those types of things. But generating an ad to get people to click through and enter the practice that way is great. It's very trackable as well. You can even just get your phone number showing up on the ad. But we've had a lot of success with that. Antonio,
Yeah,
what integrations? Yeah, what integrations are you using with Revolution to help streamline your practice?
We use, let me see here, two main integrations that come to mind just even without thinking about it. One is RxNT, which is an electronic prescribing integration. So we like to send electronic RXs to pharmacies. And so essentially, if I need to send a prescription in, there's no more writing it on paper. I can easily pull up that integration and enter in a prescription, sent to a pharmacy of their choosing. So it's really helped streamline that process. And refills are easy. So if a patient needs a refill on Stasis or something else, they'll actually, I get a ping from the pharmacy, and it will say, oh, pending refill, and I can go look, make sure, you know, that I want to refill it, and then I just click one button and it's done. So that is one integration we use a lot at the practice. And the other, I would say, is Solution Reach, which is kind of a patient communication sort of service. And that's been really, really great for the practice. And there's so much you can do with it. I've got no disclosures to reveal here. I don't have any stock in Solution Reach or anything, but essentially you can communicate with your patients with it. You can send newsletters to all of your patients. So sometimes when we were doing a little bit with genetic testing at the practice, and for a while, and so we sent a big newsletter to all of the patients, and we let them know about what we were doing. And so it's a good way to communicate with your patients directly, but also it's really helped my staff with confirmations. So the practice that I'm at is quite busy. I probably see anywhere from 25 to 30 patients a day, I'd say, on a pretty full day. On a half day, I'm probably seeing somewhere around 15 or so. But so there's a lot of appointments being made, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's really alleviated a lot of the burden on the staff, because when they make appointments, they need to call and confirm them. Well, Solution Reach will do that for you automatically. So it's really nice because it's integrated into the system, into Revolution. When a patient receives a text or receives a call, they can confirm it directly. And when they confirm it, it actually syncs in the schedule. So I can look at my schedule and I can say, okay, Mrs. Smith is confirmed, Mr. Jones is confirmed, etc. And that gives me a good idea as to should I book patients on the waiting list in an area where there's a couple of non-confirmed appointments, or B, you know, okay, maybe I can move this patient up in the day and try to head home early.
Got it. So what other, give us an idea in general of like your workflow on a daily basis with Revolution.
Yeah, sure. So Revolution is, like I said before, all in one system. So everything is in one place. So the first thing I do when I go to the office is I log in and I immediately see the schedule for the day. So I know, okay, this is what my schedule's like. This is how many patients I have. And it's quite easy to go into patient histories to look to see, okay, I saw Mr. Jones last year. That's right, he's a glaucoma suspect. We did special testing on this date. This is what the results were. So I kind of like to review the day's schedule, see what I'm getting myself involved in that day. And as I kind of go through the exams and the EHR component, I essentially finish the exam, and whenever I bring a patient down to the optical, the opticians will kind of take over from there. And you can kind of keep track of when an encounter is finished, basically when the patient is checked out. And like I had said before, you can really see live sort of updates on as to what's going on in the optical. So that's something that I like to do a lot during the day is, you know, sometime midday, I'll run a quick sales report and see, okay, this is where I'm at for the day. This is, you know, these are the collections of the practice. This is what we've done so far. You know, what might have went wrong. Where can we improve? And, you know, so I like to keep an eye out on a lot of stuff. And it sounds kind of crazy because it's, you know, you're so busy that seeing patients and worrying about all that stuff. And it's kind of like, well, you know, how could you even be thinking about running reports in the middle of exams or in between exams or looking at optical stuff? But that's what I like to do because I like to keep my finger on the pulse of the practice at all times and see where we're running. And, you know, the other nice thing is that I like to toggle a lot between the current exam that I'm working in and the schedule, because I have a habit of talking a lot. So I like to talk to my patients, which means that I can start running behind pretty quickly. And so oftentimes when I'm in the middle of an exam, just entering information, I'll click the schedule real quick and see who's checked in. And, you know, if I see there's 5 people waiting for me, I start to panic a little bit and start to move and shut my mouth. But, so those are some of the things that, you know, that's generally my workflow, the workflow that I partake in throughout a daily basis.
Sure.
There's
no,
also
really
a lot of I should add that there's a lot of good software integrations with Revolution as well for special testing, OCTs. So we have an OCT at the practice. We have an Optos. I mean, we have a lot of stuff, but you can actually have, it's kind of nice because if our technicians are performing OCTs, those OCTs are synced directly to a patient's record. So I can pull up a patient's OCT in the exam room without having to either print it out or go look at it on, you know, our instruments and with them. So that saves a lot of time. That's a good time saver for me.
And you guys also pull from frames data, or so that's got to be
right.
So much inventory out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. So frames data. So what's really cool about the optical management side of Revolution is that yes, they can pull from frames data. So there doesn't have to be manual entry with what you're carrying. And I mean, there can be. You can put manual. You can put notes if you want. You can get as descriptive as you want, as detailed as you want for searching different things, searching different frames. Quick side note on that, you asked before, and it slipped my mind, you know, what are some little things I like to do to help with optical in the exam room. And I actually usually have a couple of pairs of glasses in the exam room, and I'll actually oftentimes switch between them mid-exam. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's a good discussion. It's a good, you know, discussion piece. You know, patients say, "Oh, wait, did you change your glasses?" "Oh, yeah, I did." You know, these are the ones I like to wear for, you know, my computer.
I love that.
So we talk a lot about that. Yeah, so that's one little thing I do. And, you know, it's actually also interesting because a lot of times they'll say, "Man, I really like this." So little tip, I mean, always wear frames that you have in your practice. You know, you don't want to be wearing frames that you don't sell, because I can't tell you how many times patients have said, "Man, I really like those. Do you have those?" And you can actually wow them by, you know, like I was showing you earlier with the tab in Revolution, you could do a quick frame search and say, "Oh, actually, yeah, we do. We have this in tortoise and in black." And, you know, you can go check it out after the exam. So that's another cool thing that I like to do, just backtracking there. But I think I got away from your original question there. Sorry, but
no, that's good. That's super helpful. Yeah, I kind of directed you there anyway. Yeah, so we got a couple minutes left. Let's just talk shop in general. By the way, guys, you know, this is sponsored by RevolutionEHR, and I can't say enough about how well it's been working with the company. And I think the number one thing I hear from folks who use the system, because we've done a ton of really cool stuff with content and demonstrations with EHR and screenshots, and you can just Google New Grad Optometry RevolutionEHR to see the post we've done on it. But I still think the number one thing that stands out is their customers and how they formed like this really kind of tight-knit network I mean, this is like a network that's, you know, like almost, it's just as good as like a vision source network. I mean, you know, these people are really tight knit around the software and around helping each other and supporting each other with it. We were just at Vision Expo East, and we were doing some film downstairs, and it was really cool just to see customers who are that excited about it. And so, you know, I think, Antonio, we can add you to that group of folks there. We are doing a promotion with RevolutionEHR, where if you take a demo, you'll get a $25 Amazon gift card. So definitely try that out on undergradoptometry.com. So Antonio, let's talk just in general, you know, new graduate life, 3 years out now. You know,
Almost four.
Almost 4. Yeah, we're getting up there. I'm trying to. If we get too old, then we're just not going to be able to do new grad optometry anymore. So I'm trying to keep us young there.
Yeah, cheat a little bit.
Yeah. So, you know, I guess what are some of like the biggest things you've learned in just having a successful practice, private practice, since you've been out over the last 3 years? Forget optical management, forget EHRs for the time being. Just put some gems out there, and I'll give a couple too. We can run a couple minutes over.
Sure. I think the biggest thing is to be patient. Nothing happens overnight. When I started the practice, my patient load was very, very low. I think I told you there are days that I might have seen maybe 10 people in a day. That was like a lot. And, you know, I was kind of getting a little frustrated because, like I said before, a lot of my income was based off of, you know, seeing patients and selling and et cetera. And I was getting pretty frustrated, and I talked to one of the owners, and he said, look, he said, you know, just be patient. He said, we all go through this, and, you know, as time goes by, your practice will get busier, and get busier. And I did, you know, I stuck in there, I hung with it. And now, like I said before, I have more patients than I even want to see. And, you know, I've got, I'm booked probably 2 weeks in advance. I've got a wait list for certain days. And, you know, like I said, I see 25 to 30 people now a day, and it's a lot, but, you know, it's great. And patience is a big one. So you got to be patient. And the other thing that really grew the practice, I think, the most was that I gave the absolute best exams I could possibly give all the time. And, you know, whenever you're slow like that, that is the time to really sit down with patients and to talk to them, and to realize that, you know, you have someone in your chair there, you've got all the time in the world. Really get to know them, get to form a bond with them. The way my practice grew, you know, we talk a lot about social media, we talk a lot about marketing, advertising, but I think the biggest practice builder for me was just word of mouth from patients that I had seen that really were just impressed with the time I took with them, with, you know, how I treated them. And, you know, it would just be one of those things where I'd see a new patient, and by the time they left, they'd say, hey, I'm going to schedule my husband and my 4 kids with you next week. And I'd say, okay, great. Yeah. You know, and it just grew from there. So that's another thing. Give, you know, when you got the time and you're slow, or even if you're not slow, I mean, just give the best exam you can always give, no matter what. And I think the other thing that is really important to remember, and I won't keep, you know, get long-winded on you here, but I think the other thing to remember is that you always got to remember that you're not, that there's a person on the other side of those eyeballs you're looking at, you know, so always remember that. And you just, if you're just there and you're spinning the dials and you're saying, okay, I got to get through this 10-minute appointment, get to the next person, get to the next person, get to the next person, and go home. Number one, you're probably not going to be fulfilled at the end of the day. Number two, I don't think that you're going to grow your practice. And number three, your patients will see that. And, you know, that's how you will really fail to make a lasting relationship, a lasting bond with the patients that you have. And, you know, what's the fun in that? You know, you should be having fun.
Sure.
That's the one nice thing about what we do. We get to talk to people. We can learn so much. I learned so much about just concrete, asphalt, plumbing, electricity. I mean, I've learned so much stuff just from talking to my patients. I mean, it's been great. I haven't had to hire any kind of handyman around the house. I mean, that's the best thing. Have fun. That's all I could say.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think, you know, for me, probably the number one thing is I think a lot of new graduates aren't seeing their boss's practice as something that's their baby or their livelihood. It's really easy just to say like, me, this is what I deserve. And until you've really had the ability to have the empathy to be in their shoes and see what it's like to own a business, there's nothing like that experience until you've owned a business yourself. And granted, I've never owned a practice, but a separate business, and I just can't imagine that a practice has got to be equally as hectic and equally as difficult. And I think a lot of newer optometrists just think that they've passed, their classes and got their degree and they did the boards, and so therefore it's like, hey, okay, just pay me now and give me what I want. It just, it just still doesn't work like that. And so my biggest tip is going to be for you to, take a lot of time to have empathy for that practice owner and then find out where their problem areas are and support those things. And you may not have the skills to support them, but you have the skills to grow and learn and to become a more intelligent person. Sometimes I look back at all the years of school, Antonio, that you and I have done, and I say that there's somewhere deep inside the educator's mind, they knew all this information wasn't relevant. They were just testing our ability to grow and learn and to learn new things and be able to, in some little way, apply them. So there's no doubt about it. If you made it this far, you can learn something new, and learning does not stop at this point. So you've got to learn new ways to contribute to that practice and help that practice owner. And when you have that empathy, you'll learn how difficult it is to run that business, and you can help contribute the revenue to the business. And like Antonio's on production income, you'll definitely be rewarded for that at certain industry rates. And you can always contact us if you need help around that thing. That's what we're here to do at Optometry. Antonio, just do some closing thoughts around Revolution EHR. I know that there's been a lot of people watching this, but just in general here, they've been an awesome sponsor and supporter of us here, and we're really trying to get folks to see the efficiencies and the ease of use of the system, and why it's chosen as really one of the top EHRs out there. Any closing thoughts on it? And then we'll just wrap it up.
Yeah, I talked already a lot about the things I like about it and the things I utilize on a daily basis. One thing I probably didn't mention is that the system was designed by ODs. So when you have that creative footprint in mind, you get a great system, but you also get a system that is kind of for the people, by the people. And I'll never forget, there was a sort of feature on Revolution. It was kind of the way the schedule had populated, I guess you could say. And Revolution went and made this update. And had no idea, logged in the next day, and I said, oh my gosh, what happened to this schedule? This is horrible. What's going on? And we emailed customer support, expressed our opinions. A lot of ODs out there, practice owners, did the same thing, and Revolution said, hey, you know what? We understand that this is not something you guys want. Let's fix it. Let's change it back. And that's the type of system that that I want. Something that says, hey, we care about you. We want your feedback. We want to make you guys happy. So let us do that for you. So customer support and customer relations, just top notch. And they've got a great community forum as well that you can reach out to if you need help. And so the support is there. So yeah, I'd say that's one thing that I didn't mention earlier that I'd probably just like to share.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. As we're a software company with Covalent Careers, and there's the process of developing great software is to put something out there, get feedback, and then iterate on it. And so that lesson and that ability to be agile as a company is a sure sign of a good company, rather than no, you've got to deal with this change or what we see as a benefit, and that helps them to develop. I think when we were using it, I liked the ability of the system to be able to scale with you as you change systems or as you go from paperless, or as you go paperless. The practice that I was working at only wanted to do scheduling at first and some of the inventory aspects at first, and then later on be able to use the medical records side of things. And I guess that's the modular kind of way that rev is built, but it allowed us to do that, which is an enormous burden of relief for a practice owner who's scared to take the plunge, and rightfully so. But for him, he was rolling it out over 12 to 18 months, and that worked for him. And that's interesting because we think that an EHR, it's got one goal to record the medical records and help the practice management, and that's it. But really, our goal as practice owners, or not myself, but for practice owners, is to be able to still get their job done while making improvements in the practice. And if you don't have a software company that can iterate or that can develop and scale as you scale, then you really can't get your job done. You can't switch overnight; that's impossible. So it's got to be able to scale with you.
I mean, one other thing I'll quickly add, Matt, that I think is fantastic is I've used server-based systems as well, but Revolution is a cloud-based system, and it's just been such a great benefit and to have, because I do a good bit of traveling and I'm on the road, and as I am on the road, I can quickly log in, see messages from the staff, see messages from patients, respond to them. So I've always got access to it at my fingertips. And so even though I'm disconnected from, which is good, which can be good or bad, right? But no, it's good, because even though I'm disconnected from the practice when I'm away and I'm not around, I can easily see what's going on and I can easily respond. And I think that's really important.
I remember when you were out in San Diego, we were hanging around doing some planning for this year, and you were like, "Oh my God, this is a busy day. I feel bad for the doctor on call because you're looking at the schedule." Yeah.
So, but that's been great. I mean, there's all kinds of different benefits of cloud-based systems or server-based systems, but we'll have to get into that another day.
Sure. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to reach out to us, Antonio at newgradoptometry.com and Matt at newgradoptometry.com. We're happy to answer questions for you about new graduate, optical management, where we really just brush the surface, but also about RevolutionEHR. And thanks for watching. And we're going to be doing another webinar really soon on, I think, there's a lot of topics, so you'll have to get that the newsletter or through some of our social media posts, so stay tuned. But thank you guys for being a fan of us and for following what we're putting together here. If you ever want to get on one of these or want to share your knowledge or write for the site, we're here to put you on the pedestal and shine the light on you. So just let us know. But thanks again for watching. Antonio, thank you so much for all the wisdom and for the the truly genuine, opinion on what you've done so far in the last almost 4 years to be successful as a new graduate.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.